very well. Now the census categories are really weird. You either speak English very well or less than very well. And so that's actually the low fluency category in this data. And only 13% of households don't speak English very well. Or I'm sorry, 13% of residents don't speak English very well. So that 31% number, we do want to put in context. We used to look at that as language isolation, but in reality, over half of those folks actually are speaking Spanish at home by choice, just to pass it down to the family. They speak English very well as well. And then there's data on income, and then the ones that often get looked at the bottom are renters versus owners, and single family versus multifamily housing. So these are all factors that people can look at when they're looking at communities of interest. They don't have to. Just to give you a ballpark numbers, this doesn't label the unincorporated areas other than the villages that the census calls census designated places. But as I'll show you, or it was on that slide, 89,317 is your 2010 estimated population, which gives you just under 18,000 people per division. Which means Desert Hot Springs has about almost 1.5 divisions worth of population. Palm Springs has a little over 2, and Cathedral City has about 1/3. You actually have 19 residents of Rancho Mirage in your division as well. So there are lots of pieces that we're looking at. So somehow we have to arrange these things so that we cover all those areas and hit those population targets. I mentioned the Latino neighborhoods. So in this map, the purples are below 25% of the eligible voters are Latino. Then you get the blues are 25 to 50. Greens and yellows are 50 to 65 and 65 to 75% Latino among the eligible voters. And then red is 75% above. One of the things with a jurisdiction like this, some of your rural areas have large census blocks that pop out on that map, but only have 2 or 3 people in them. Really where we're looking at the concentrations are in the more urban, more heavily populated census blocks. And really each city has a bit of a pocket. Desert Hot Springs has a distinct Latino neighborhood. You can see kind of the yellows and reds up here. It leads out into the Desert Edge unincorporated area as well. Palm Springs has a very limited, essentially just southeast of the airport. They have kind of a small pocket of Latino population, and then Cathedral City has its own heavily Latino neighborhood. So each of those pieces we'll be focusing on and making sure that we don't dilute their voting strength in whatever maps we look at. On the bigger picture, where we really focus is communities of interest, and this is where all the discussion tends to be. It could be anything. A neighborhood is whatever the people in that neighborhood define as their area. So it could be a school attendance zone, could be an area around a park, could be a formally recognized, Palm Springs has lots of formally recognized neighborhoods. I can tell you that Justin Levitt, my vice president, knows those neighborhoods so well now, because that was all the discussion in the city process was this neighborhood, that neighborhood. And then it could be or it could be socioeconomic demographics, or just an area form, one major road to another major road. Whatever people look at as their neighborhood is what we want to hear about. But there's a second question that usually gets forgotten, which is, okay, this is your community, but do you want to be kept together in one division so that you maximize your votes for that director, but then you only have 1? Or keeping in mind that it's still going to take 3 votes to do anything. A number of jurisdictions, or a number of communities actually say, divide us. We want to, it'll dilute our voting strength, but that gives us 2 directors who are accountable to our group, and two campaigns that are coming to us and campaigning and having to listen to us each election cycle. So there's 2 questions. What is your community of interest? And do you want to be united, or do you want to have a division so that you have multiple representatives? I'll give you a couple of kind of very concrete examples that I found have helped that. These are very traditional regional maps. So these would be uniting neighborhoods. On the left is the Compton City Council. Obviously the city is funny shaped, but the districts, other than the little bump up that was required for equal population, are essentially the 4 quadrants of the city. They went very regional, keep each community together. Same thing with Glendale Unified School District, a north seat, an east seat, very traditional. And probably about half to 2/3 of jurisdictions go that way. But equally valid Our jurisdictions went the other way. So if you're familiar with Old Town Pasadena, the shopping district of Pasadena, just about everyone's been to at some point. When Pasadena went to district elections, Old Town was an area you didn't go after dark. They were just starting the redevelopment. And so they didn't want council members checking out and not feeling accountable. So that line through the middle, Colorado Boulevard, all the council districts touch the Old Town redevelopment area, so that every council member had a piece and felt accountable and responsible for that. South Pasadena, a tiny, 1 square mile city, was forced by this law to go to district elections. So they stretched everything. Well, they stretched 3 of the 5. So that each of those council members really is still an at-large council member. They have a piece of every neighborhood in the city. By stretching it out. It looks funny. Same thing with Pasadena. These lines look funny, but it's for a very policy-oriented goal of keeping that feel. And then the ones that do it the most are the schools, the school boards. They don't want board members feeling like they own a school. And you get, worst case, you get like board members calling the principal and bypassing the superintendent and messes like that. So they often have funny-looking lines because they're making sure that at least 2 board members represent the kids and the families that go to every school, and that every school has multiple board members. Central Unified by Fresno, you can see these crazy lines as it wraps around. They actually have, I think, at least 3 board members representing every school on their 5-member board. Now it makes sense. A majority of the board answers to the voters whose kids go to those schools. But to do that, you get these funny lines. This is Fresno up here, and then this is farm country out here. And you get these funny looking lines. So I just want to note that that is an option, that as you look at draft maps, we'll come to you with both approaches, and you can consider whether you have policy issues that drive that. So that's a quick spin through this. We'll obviously happy to answer any questions now or after any public comments you get. And we're of course always happy to answer questions. The key thing is, as your legal counsel mentioned, we can't actually draft anything. The public can come in and propose maps to you. And that's actually kind of what we're looking at is their input on what other communities and where should the maps go. But we won't have any official draft maps till after the second hearing. Thank you very much.